My girlfriend of 4 years played me as a fixer-upper project while lining up a better man. 2 years later, my little car wash hustle became her worst nightmare. Okay, using a throwaway because my main is way too easy to identify. Buckle up! This is gonna be a ride. So I, male, was 27 when all this started, living out of my beat-up 2003 Dodge Caravan with my rescue dog Knox, a scrappy pit mix with one ear and trust issues. We'd been a package deal since I found him tied to a dumpster behind the gas station where I used to fill up my pressure washer. Back then, my entire business was me, Knox, that pressure washer, and a bunch of eco-friendly cleaning supplies I bought in bulk. Mobile detailing wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. I'd pull up to people's houses, businesses, wherever, and transform their rides from disasters to showroom clean. I had a knack for it. Could get gum out of fabric seats, restore headlights that looked like they had cataracts, make decade-old cars smell factory fresh. I charged fair prices and busted my ass, sometimes doing 12 cars a day, eating cold sandwiches from gas stations, and showering at the Planet Fitness I paid $10 a month for. At night, Knox and I would park at Walmart or behind the strip mall where my buddy worked security. I had a system: memory foam pad in the back, battery-powered fan, cooler for food. Wasn't pretty, but it was freedom. I was saving every penny that didn't go to gas or dog food, dreaming of my own permanent location someday. I met my girlfriend Madison at a client's house. She was his daughter, home from her fancy MBA program. I was detailing her dad's Tesla and her BMW in their circular driveway when she came out with two lemonades, one clearly for her dad, mine an afterthought. She pointed at a spotless rim and said, "I missed a spot." I told her I didn't, without even looking up. That caught her off guard. She wasn't used to anyone pushing back. I still remember her outfit: white linen shorts, pricey sandals, a flowy top that probably cost more than my whole setup. She looked like luxury and acted like it too. I wrapped up, got paid, solid tip, condescending glance, and figured I'd never see her again. But as I packed up, she walked over and asked for my card, saying she had friends who might need detailing. 2 days later, she called. Not for the car. For a date. Those first 6 months felt like borrowing someone else's reality. She'd roll up in her BMW while I made damn sure she never saw my actual bedroom, the back of my van. We'd hit restaurants where even my cleanest work shirt felt like a Halloween costume. Living situation? Just crashing with a buddy temporarily? I'd say vaguely. Not technically bullshit. Conks was the best buddy a guy could have. The ego boost was real, though. Having this gorgeous woman hold my arm in public. 3 months in, at this scenic overlook above the city, I finally came clean. Living in my van, gym showers, $13,000 saved for my eventual detailing shop. She stayed quiet so long I braced for the goodbye speech. Instead, she hit me with, "That's the most honest thing anyone's ever told me. Everyone else in my life is faking it. You're building something real," she said. Hook, line, sinker. A month later, I had a shitty studio apartment with her, investing in our future by covering the security deposit. I killed myself working extra jobs, sometimes grinding from 5 a.m. until after dark while she'd bring takeout, perch on my one folding chair, listen to me ramble about my detailing shop dreams while Conk snored at her feet. "You see value where others see garbage," she'd tell me. I thought she meant cars. Turns out she thought she was talking about herself. The first time I met her parents was at their country club. I wore clothes Madison had bought me. "Just so you're comfortable," she'd said, like my work jeans would spontaneously combust in their rarefied air. Her father, Greg, was old money incarnate, and her mother, Diana, was a walking advertisement for plastic surgery and passive-aggressive comments. "So, Mitchell," Greg said over overpriced steaks, "Maddie tells us you're in the automotive industry?" "I detail cars, sir," I said plainly. "Mobile service now, but I'm saving for my own location." "Fascinating," Diana murmured, in a tone that suggested watching paint dry would be more compelling. "And is there career advancement in car washing?" "I'm not an employee, ma'am. I own my business. Every car I do is my reputation, my brand." Greg chuckled like I'd told a joke. "Well, I admire the entrepreneurial spirit. We all start somewhere." The somewhere hung in the air like a bad smell. To them, I wasn't on a path. I was stuck at the starting line. Madison squeezed my hand under the table. I thought it was solidarity. Really, she was telling me not to embarrass her further. That night, as we drove back to my place in her car, she was quiet. "They're just old-fashioned," she finally said. "They'll come around when they see how successful you'll be. When, not if." That's what kept me hooked. That's what made me ignore the red flags when her work friend Phil started showing up in her stories, Phil with his pressed shirts and medical administrator badge. Phil who went to the same college as her. Phil whose parents were friends with her parents. He's just a friend from my networking group, she'd insist. Don't be insecure, it's not attractive. I believed her because I wanted to. Because at night she was in my bed in my shitty apartment, not his. Because she'd trace the calluses on my hands and call them signs of a man who works for what he wants. What an idiot I was. For almost 2 years, I lived in this bubble where Madison seemed to genuinely believe in me. She'd help me fold towels for the next day's jobs. She bought Knox expensive dog food that was better for his coat. She'd talk about our shop and how she'd handle the books while I ran the detailing side. Sometimes she'd surprise me at job sites with coffee, looking out of place in her sundresses and designer sunglasses next to my van. My clients loved her. She was charming, remembered their kids' names, asked about their vacations. She'd hand out my cards to anyone with a nice car. My business grew. I was working 70-hour weeks, taking every job I could get. Dealerships started calling me to detail their high-end trade-ins. I hired my first helper, Javi, a kid from my old neighborhood with a magic touch on leather interiors. Between jobs, I scouted locations, researched equipment, drew up floor plans on napkins. Meanwhile, Madison's visits got less frequent. More girls' nights. More family obligations I wasn't invited to. More work events that were too boring for me to attend. I was too exhausted to see it clearly. When you're busting your ass all day, it's easy to miss the slow fade. The real eye-opener came when I surprised her one night. I'd finished my jobs early, picked up her favorite sushi, and driven to her condo. She'd never moved in with me in that apartment. Always had an excuse, despite all our building a future talk. I still had the key she'd given me for emergencies. I heard her before I saw her. She was on the phone in her bedroom, door cracked. "No, Mom, I'm not breaking up with him yet," she was saying. "It's complicated. Yes, I know you like Phil better. Of course he has a real career." My stomach dropped through the floor. Look, Mitch is sweet, but he's just so content with where he is. The car washing thing was cute at first, but it's been 2 years. He still shows up smelling like chemicals and wax. Yes, I know Phil just bought a condo downtown. I set the sushi on her kitchen counter and left silently. She never mentioned it. Never asked why I didn't answer her calls that night. Just showed up at my apartment the next day like nothing happened. I should have ended it right there, but I was already in too deep. I'd just signed a lease on a small shop space, a former Quick Lube place that had gone under. It needed work, but the bones were good. 2 bays, office space, small waiting area. The rent was steep, but with my savings and a small loan, I could make it work. The day I got the keys, I took Madison to see it. I was so proud, practically vibrating with excitement. This was it. My dream taking physical form. "It's smaller than I expected," was her first comment. "It's just the beginning," I said, refusing to let her dampen my spirits. Phase 1. She walked around, her designer boots clicking on the stained concrete. "What's your business plan?" she asked. "Your growth strategy? Have you done market research for this area?" All the MBA buzzwords she'd never bothered to mention when it was just me and my van. "I have 15 regular clients ready to follow me here. 3 dealerships that want weekly service contracts, and the best damn detailer in the city," I said. "That's my business plan." She sighed like I was a child who couldn't grasp basic math. "Mitch, you need proper projections, forecasting. This is a big commitment." "I've been committing every day for 3 years," I said quietly. Every car, every client, every sunrise, I was already working. This isn't new, it's just more visible now. She didn't get it. To her, success was PowerPoints and investor meetings. To me, it was the deep satisfaction of turning something neglected into something beautiful again, of standing back and seeing the transformation you created with your own hands. A week later, she invited me to her parents' anniversary party, another country club event, more rich people judging my existence. But this was important to her, so I rented a suit and showed up with flowers for her mom. That's when I met Phil in person. He looked exactly like I'd pictured. Tall, gym fit, but not from actual labor, expensive watch, constipated smile. He was talking to Madison when I walked in, standing too close, laughing too hard at whatever she was saying. "Mitch," she said with forced brightness when she saw me. "Come meet Phil. He just got promoted to Regional Director of Operations." Phil's handshake was firm but soft, the hand of a man who'd never used a pressure washer or scrubbed brake dust off a rim. "Madison tells me you're in automotive services," he said, the same way her father had. "I own a detailing business," I corrected. "Just opened my first permanent location." "Good for you," he nodded, with the practiced encouragement of someone talking to a child about their macaroni art. Always nice to see the service industry thriving. Throughout the night, I watched them together. The inside jokes, the casual touches, the way her parents beamed when he spoke. They had history, college stories, family connections, shared vacations. Later, Madison's mother cornered me by the bar. "Mitchell," she said, "what exactly are your intentions with my daughter?" "I love her," I said simply. "I want to build a life with her." She gave me a pitying look. "A life of what? Car washes and struggle?" Madison was raised for more than that. "With all due respect, ma'am, your daughter is an adult who makes her own choices." She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, you really don't know Maddie at all, do you? She's always done exactly what's expected of her. This little rebellion with you? It's just her checking off the dated a bad boy box before settling down properly." I should have walked out right then. Instead, I stayed and watched Phil place his hand on the Madison's back while they talked, her father nodding approvingly nearby. In the car afterward, I finally confronted her. "What am I to you, Madison?" "Really?" She looked startled. "What do you mean? You're my boyfriend." "Am I? Or am I your charity project? Your walk on the wild side before you marry someone your parents actually approve of?" "That's not fair," she said, eyes welling up on cue. "I've supported you from the beginning." "You've tolerated me," I corrected. "There's a difference. Is this about Phil? He's just a family friend. It's not about him. It's about us. About whether there ever really was an us, or if I was just filling time until your real life started." She reached for my hand. "I love you, Mitch. I worry about our future sometimes. About stability." And there it was, the word that rich people use when they mean money. Despite the red flags waving in my face, I was stubborn enough to think a ring would fix everything. Pretty damn stupid in hindsight, but I was desperate to prove something. To her snobby parents, maybe even to myself. "I've never been more stable in my life," I said. "I have a legitimate business, a physical location with my name on it, clients who actually respect what I do. What I don't have is Daddy's trust fund." She went quiet after that, just stared out the window the whole drive back. When I dropped her off, she gave me this sad little kiss and whispered, "We'll figure it out." But her eyes told a different story. They'd already made the decision for her. Still, I was planning to propose like some delusional idiot. Had been stashing away cash from extra jobs for months to buy a ring. Nothing that would impress her parents, but real diamonds, not cubic zirconia. It sat in my sock drawer next to the first set of actual business keys I'd ever owned. Something in me needed to force the issue, to make her choose me publicly, definitively, to prove to her family that their princess really did love the guy with grease under his fingernails. I figured the proposal would either save us or end us. Either way, I'd finally know where I stood. The renovations on the shop were coming along. I'd installed a water reclamation system, bought professional equipment, painted the place myself after hours. Javi was now full-time, and I'd hired another guy, Marcus, who specialized in paint correction. We were booked 2 weeks out for appointments. Madison came by less and less. Always excuses. Work was busy. She was helping her mom plan a charity thing. She had a networking event. When she did visit, she'd wrinkle her nose at the chemical smells, make comments about the rough area, ask when I was going to hire a real receptionist instead of answering my own phone. But sometimes, I'd catch her looking at me with something like admiration when I transformed a trashed SUV into something showroom-worthy. In those moments, I thought maybe, just maybe, we had a shot. Her 28th birthday was coming up. Her parents were throwing her a party at their lake house, the one with the boat dock and personal beach. I wasn't originally invited. "It's just family," she'd said. "After 3 years, I'm not family?" I asked. She backpedaled quickly. "Of course you are. I just thought you'd be busy with the shop." I rearranged the schedule, delegated weekend appointments to Javi and Marcus. This was important. I'd planned to propose the next day, take her out on the lake in the early morning when it was just us. I arrived at the party with the ring in my pocket and knocks at my sister's place. There were way more cars than just family would account for. Range Rovers, Mercedes, a couple of Porsches. I parked my newly wrapped work van, now sporting my shop's logo and phone number, right between a Jaguar and a BMW. Inside was worse. At least 50 people, all looking like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog. I recognized some of Madison's college friends, her parents' social circle, and, of course, Phil, holding court by the French doors to the deck. Madison spotted me and hurried over, looking slightly panicked. "You brought the work van?" she hissed instead of a greeting. "It's my only vehicle," I said simply. She composed herself quickly. "Right, of course. Come in, get a drink." She led me around, introducing me to people with her hand lightly on my arm. I noticed she never used the word boyfriend. It was always, "This is Mitch. He owns that new detail shop on Westbrook." Like I was the caterer, not her partner of 3 years. Then I overheard her mother talking to someone on the deck. "No, no, they're not serious. She's just being kind. You know Maddie. Always had a soft spot for projects. Projects. That's what I was. A freaking project." I walked out to the dock alone, staring at the water and fingering the ring box in my pocket. I'd been so stupid, thinking I could bridge worlds that weren't meant to connect. That love would be enough. Women like Madison don't end up with guys like us. I turned to find an older man smoking a cigar nearby. He wore the uniform, polo, khakis, loafers, but his hands were rough, nails stained. "Excuse me?" "Sorry, not trying to eavesdrop. I'm Diana's second cousin, Walter. I do all the maintenance on their properties." He gestured around. "Been watching you all night. You look how I felt 30 years ago." "And how's that?" "Like a guy who just realized he's been invited to a dinner, where he's actually the main course." I didn't respond, but he continued anyway. "Let me guess. You work with your hands. Built something from nothing. Thought your grit would impress them. That your honesty would matter more than your bank account." "Something like that," I admitted. He nodded. "I married into this world. Different branch of the family, less money. Been treated like the help for 3 decades. Even at my own anniversary parties." He took a long drag. "They never let you forget where they think you belong." Back inside, Madison was standing close to Phil, laughing at something he said. Her father's hand was on Phil's shoulder, the proud dad pose I'd never experienced. I should have just left. Instead, I walked straight up to them. "Mitch!" Madison said too brightly. "There you are. Phil was just telling us about his new condo downtown." "Fascinating," I said flatly. "Maddie, can we talk privately for a minute?" Her eyes darted around nervously. "Right now? We're just about to cut the cake. It won't take long." I led her to a quiet corner of the expansive deck. The ring box felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket, but not for the reason I'd expected. "Are we doing this?" I asked quietly. "Doing what?" "The party." "We are at the party," she laughed nervously. "Number us." "Are we really doing this? Building a life together? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've got one foot out the door and have for a while." She blinked rapidly. "Mitch, where is this coming from? I've been supportive of your career choice." "Career choice? Like I was playing dress up as a business owner." "You've been slumming it," I corrected. "Trying on a life with me like it's a costume you can take off when you get bored. I've watched you pull away for months. I've heard how you talk about me to your family. That's not—" "Your mom called me a project, Madison. Just now. To other guests." Her face flushed. "She doesn't mean—" "Yes, she does. And worse, I think you agree with her." I took a deep breath. "I came here tonight to ask you to marry me." Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "Mitch!" I held up my hand. "Don't worry. I'm not going to anymore. I finally see clearly." I pulled out the ring box and set it on the railing between us. "This is who I am. I detail cars. I work with my hands. I smell like chemicals sometimes. My dog rides shotgun in my van. I'll never be the guy your parents want for you." She stared at the box but didn't touch it. "I do love you," she whispered. And I think she even believed it. "No, you love the idea of me. The bad boy narrative you can tell at cocktail parties someday." "Oh, before I married Phil, I dated this guy who ran a car wash. So adventurous." Her face told me I'd hit the target. "I wasn't going to marry Phil," she protested weakly. "Maybe not, but you were never going to marry me either." I left the ring on the railing and walked away. As I passed the cluster of people, including Phil and her parents, I nodded politely. "Beautiful party," I said to her stunned mother. "Thank you for having me. I won't be back." I drove home in my wrapped van, the one Madison was so embarrassed by, and felt lighter than I had in years. The breakup aftermath hit harder than I expected. Not because I missed Madison, the scales had fallen from my eyes pretty completely, but because I'd structured so much of my business growth around her validation. I'd pushed too fast on the shop, taken on too much overhead trying to prove I was stable enough. 2 months after the party disaster, a pipe burst in the ceiling, flooding the place and destroying thousands in equipment. Insurance covered some, but not enough. I fell behind on rent. Clients were understanding, but I had to refer out jobs while repairs dragged on. I ended up moving a cot into the back office to save on apartment rent. Just me and Knox back to basics. I sold my TV, my couch, anything I didn't absolutely need. Javi stuck with me, even when I could barely pay him. And Marcus found another job. No hard feelings. I didn't look at social media, but word filtered back through mutual friends. Madison and Phil were officially together 3 weeks after our breakup. Her parents were ecstatic. There were photos of them at charity galas, her sorority sister's destination wedding, a ski trip to Aspen. Meanwhile, I was showering in the shop sink and eating ramen heated in the microwave we kept in the waiting area. Then one night, as I was sleeping on my cot with Knox snoring beside me, I made a decision. I was done chasing validation from people who would never give it, done trying to prove myself worthy of worlds that would never accept me. I was going to build something on my own terms. The next morning, I called the landlord and negotiated. The shop location wasn't working. Too expensive, wrong clientele. I needed out of the lease. To my surprise, he agreed, even returned part of my security deposit. He'd had someone interested in the space for a while. A quick oil change franchise. I went back to mobile detailing, but with a twist. Instead of trying to serve everyone, I focused exclusively on high-end cars. Exotic, luxury, collectible. The stuff other detailers were afraid to touch. I'd always had a gift for paint correction, for bringing out depth and clarity that others couldn't match. Now I leaned all the way in. I redesigned my van wrap. Sleek, minimal, premium looking. Built a simple website showcasing the transformations I could achieve. Priced myself at the top of the market and didn't budge. And something weird happened. People responded. Turned out guys with $100,000 cars were willing to pay premium prices for premium service. They didn't care if I showed up in a van instead of a storefront, as long as the results were extraordinary. They didn't need fancy waiting rooms. They'd drop off their cars and go play golf. I started turning a profit again. Built a client list of doctors, lawyers, executives who all had one thing in common. They appreciated craftsmanship over flash. 6 months into this new approach, I met that new girl named Alexis. She brought in her vintage Porsche, a car she'd restored herself, not a status symbol, but a labor of love. She watched me work with actual interest, asking intelligent questions about products and techniques. Alexis was different from Madison in every way. She ran her own architectural salvage business, could talk for hours about the beauty of old-growth timber and hand-forged hardware. She got her hands dirty. She built things. We started slow, coffee after I finished her car, then dinner a week later. I told her everything up front, about living in my van, about the shop failure, about Madison. No more hiding parts of myself. Sounds like you dodged artillery, not just a bullet, was her assessment of the Madison situation. With Alexis's encouragement, I started looking for a new shop space, something smaller, more sustainable. She found it, actually, a former mechanic's garage in an up-and-coming area. The owner was an old client of hers who was retiring. The rent was reasonable. The space, perfect. I took the leap again, but smarter this time. Minimal renovations. Used equipment I restored myself. No fancy waiting room, just honest work at fair prices. I hired Javi back, then added a third detailer as business grew. Slowly, steadily, we built a reputation as the place for serious car people. Not the status seekers with their leased luxury sedans, but the enthusiasts, the collectors, the people who actually cared about their vehicles beyond what image they projected. A year after reopening, I got a call from Walter, the maintenance guy from Madison's lake house party. He managed properties for her family and needed help with a car collection. A relative had died, leaving 12 neglected classics that needed restoration before auction. He called me because I was the best and could be discreet. The family wanted it done quietly. They didn't want people knowing these valuable cars had been neglected. After confirming Madison wouldn't be involved, I quoted an absurd price for the weeks of specialized work. He didn't even flinch before asking when I could start. Working on those cars was pure joy. Each one told a story. The 1965 Corvette Stingray with cigarette burns in the leather, the Mercedes 300 SL with mouse nests in the engine compartment, the Ferrari Dino with faded paint that came alive under my polisher. I brought in specialists, spent days on each vehicle, documented every step. Word spread in collector circles. These weren't just clean cars. They were masterfully restored, brought back from the brink. The before and after photos were stunning. My website traffic exploded. I started getting calls from serious collectors across the country. 5 months after the family collection job, I had more work than I could handle. I specialize now in resurrection details, taking neglected classics and making them auction ready. I hired 2 more staff, invested in transport capability, started traveling for special jobs. Alexis and I moved in together, a small house with a big garage where I could tinker with my own project cars. Knox had a yard for the first time in his life. We weren't rich by Madison standards, but we were building something sustainable, something real. I barely thought about my old life anymore. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through the grapevine. Madison and Phil got engaged. They bought a house in the gated community her parents had always wanted her to live in. He got a big promotion at the healthcare system where he worked. Picture perfect life by their standards. Then came the call that pulled everything full circle. Walter again. He sounded tense and urgent, asking for help with something involving Phil. I was ready to hang up. I wanted nothing to do with their world anymore. But he rushed to explain there'd been an incident with the car collection. The family had kept a few after seeing my restoration work, and now they were stored at the lake house, Madison's parents' place with the massive boathouse, big enough to hold a dozen cars easy. What's this got to do with Philly? I asked. Walter sighed heavily. He was showing off to some colleagues. Took out the Ferrari without permission. There was an accident. Minor, but the car is damaged. If Greg finds out, again, what's this got to do with me? The family reunion is in 3 weeks. Greg will expect to see all the cars in perfect condition. Phil is desperate to fix this before then. I laughed bitterly. And he wants my help? Does he even know who I am? No, Walter admitted. He knows I handled the restoration project, but not who did the work. He just knows he needs the best. Tell him to check Yelp, I said coldly, and hung up. But I was curious, so I called Walter back an hour later. How bad is the damage? Front quarter panel, headlight assembly, some undercarriage scrapes. The car's at my workshop now, hidden from the family. I've got a body guy who can handle the metal, but the paint matching, the final detailing, I need someone who can make it invisible. This is a rare color, a special order from the factory. I thought about it. On one hand, I wanted nothing to do with Phil or his problems. On the other hand, I'll look at it, I said finally. Text me the address. The car was worse than Walter had described. The Ferrari, a 1972 dyno in a rare factory copper color, had significant damage to the front end. Phil had apparently misjudged a turn and hit a stone wall. The headlight was smashed, the quarter panel crumpled, and the custom paint was scratched to hell. Can you fix it? Walter asked anxiously. I circled the car slowly, assessing the damage. The body shop did decent work on the panel, but the paint match is wrong. Too orange. I ran my hand over the repair. The clear coat application is amateur hour. I can see the orange peel from here. Phil stood off to the side, pretending to check his phone. He still hadn't recognized me. It had been nearly 2 years, and I looked different now. More filled out, beard neatly trimmed instead of the patchy mess I'd had before. Work clothes that actually fit instead of whatever was clean. How much to make it right? Walter asked. I named a price that made Phil's head snap up. That's insane, he protested. It's just a detail job. I turned to look at him fully for the first time. This isn't a wash and wax, buddy. This is resurrection work. Color matching a 40-year-old factory finish. Wet sanding the clear coat, blending the new paint with the old so it's undetectable. I'm the only guy in 3 states who can make this disappear. He looked me over, trying to place me. I saw the moment recognition dawned. Wait! You're Mitch, I said flatly. The car wash guy. The color drained from his face. You know each other? Walter asked, feigning ignorance poorly. We've met, I said. I turned back to the car. My price stands. Take it or leave it. Phil pulled Walter aside, their urgent whispers carrying easily in the concrete space. You brought him? Are you kidding me? He's the best, Walter insisted. Nobody else can match this paint. There has to be someone else. Not in the time frame we have. The reunion is in 3 weeks. I pretended to examine the damage further while they argued. Finally, Phil approached me, jaw tight. Fine, do it. But I want this kept between us. I looked at him for a long moment. Let me be clear. I don't care about you, your reputation, or your future in-law's opinion of you. I care about this car. I'll fix it because it deserves better than a hack job, not to save your ass. He nodded stiffly. When can you start? Tomorrow. I'll need the car transported to my shop. Your shop? He looked panicked. Can't you do it here? Not if you want it done right. I need my equipment, my controlled environment. Unless you want to explain to Greg why his Ferrari looks like it was painted with a spray can from the hardware store. He relented, arranging for the car to be delivered discreetly the next morning. I spent the next 2 weeks on that Ferrari. Stripped the clear coat completely, color matched the paint perfectly, applied it in thin, careful layers. I worked late every night, sometimes sleeping at the shop. This wasn't about Phil anymore. It was about the car, about my craft. Alexis brought me dinner most nights, sitting quietly while I worked, occasionally handing me tools or making suggestions. She understood this had become personal. 3 days before the deadline, I called Walter. It's done. When they arrived to pick up the car, even Walter was shocked. The Ferrari gleamed under the shop lights. The copper paint so deep and flawless, it looked like you could dip your hand into it. The repair was completely invisible. No seam, no color variation. Nothing to indicate it had ever been damaged. Holy shit, Phil breathed, circling the car. It looks better than before the accident. It is, I said simply. He pulled out his checkbook, wrote the full amount without further complaint. This is impressive work. I didn't acknowledge the compliment, just took the check and handed him the keys. As they were leaving, Phil hesitated. Madison doesn't need to know about this. I looked at him evenly. I haven't spoken to Madison in 2 years. I don't plan to start now. He nodded, relieved. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, turning back to my shop. Just don't drive cars you can't handle. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, Walter called again. Greg loved the Ferrari. Said it's never looked better. Good, I said, not particularly interested. He wants to know who did the work. Says the rest of the collection needs to be brought up to the same standard. I paused. Did you tell him? Not yet. That's why I'm calling. This could be a big contract. 6 more classics, full restoration details. But it would mean working with Madison's family again, I finished. Yes, and eventually she'd find out. I thought about it. The work would be incredible. The kind of cars most detailers only dream about. The money would be enough to expand the shop. Maybe open a second location. Tell him it was me, I decided. If he still wants me after that, I'll consider it. 2 days later, Greg called me himself, way more humble than I expected. He said he'd heard I was the one who brought the collection back to life, especially the dyno. Told me he'd had shops from New York, LA, even Europe work on those cars, and none came close to what I'd done. Then he offered the whole collection. Full overhauls, no budget limit. Dream gig. But I had to ask if Madison knew he was calling. She didn't. He said he'd rather keep it quiet until after the wedding. So yeah, the wedding was on. I told him I'd take the job because I love the work, not because I'm trying to sneak in through a side door. If Madison or Phil couldn't handle me being around, that was their problem, not mine. He paused, then said, "When can you start?" The contract was massive, the largest my company had ever landed. I hired 2 more specialists, bought new equipment, even leased a transport trailer. For the next 3 months, we worked exclusively on the Reynolds collection, bringing each vehicle to Concours level perfection. Word spread in collector circles. My before and after photos went viral in car communities. Suddenly, I had waiting lists, people flying me across the country for consultations, offers to detail for museums, and high-end auctions. I was polishing chrome on the last Mercedes when Madison and Diana walked in and froze mid-conversation. The look on Madison's face when she realized her father had hired the car wash guy to restore their precious collection was priceless. When she asked why her dad would possibly hire me, I didn't bother looking up from my work, just said, because I'm the best, and suggested she ask Phil about the Ferrari. Watching the color drain from her face as she connected the dots about the accident he'd hidden from her family was almost worth all the bullshit. She struggled to reconcile the loser she'd dumped with the specialist her father now trusted with his most valuable possessions. When she awkwardly invited me to the wedding, my firm no seemed to disappoint her more than it should have. Too bad. I was done being her family's dirty little secret. Now I was their expensive necessity. I finished the Mercedes the next day. Greg inspected it, beaming with pride. Magnificent, he declared. Truly museum quality. He handed me the final check, a substantial amount that would fund my shop expansion completely. I'd like to put you on retainer, he said. Regular maintenance, special projects. Whatever you think the collection needs. I appreciate that, I said. But I should tell you, I'm expanding. Opening a second location on the West Coast. I'll be traveling a lot. I didn't give Greg a firm yes about being on retainer. Just told him I was expanding to California. The man who once thought I wasn't good enough for his princess now wanted to work around my schedule. Funny how life works. Walter caught me loading equipment, grinning about how far I'd come from the van with magnetic signs. Still had it, I told him. Just added 5 more and a fancy transport trailer. Business was good. He casually mentioned how Gregory now bragged about me at the country club. The same guy who wasn't good enough for his daughter was now his prized specialist. He showed off to friends. Oh, and by the way, the wedding was postponed. Again. 3rd time. Phil was having professional difficulties. His precious merger falling apart, bored looking for someone to blame. I pretended not to care. 2 weeks later, Diana called me in California. She needed a favor. The irony was delicious. The wedding was rescheduled, Phil's company car got repossessed, causing quite the scene in their pristine neighborhood, and Greg was letting him drive the Ferrari to the ceremony. But only if I personally inspected it first. Let me get this straight. Fly back to check the Ferrari that Phil wrecked so he could drive it to marry my ex? Sure, why not? I'd be there 3 days before the wedding, not for the money. The lake house was chaos when I arrived. Decorations half assembled, Diana barking orders. The Ferrari was fine, just needed a quick polish. Then Madison appeared, exhausted with dark circles under her eyes. She apologized for not seeing what I was building. I told her she saw exactly what she wanted to see. When she asked if I was happy, I thought about Alexis. Our house, Knox, my business. Yes, very. Greg burst in about some emergency board meeting Phil couldn't miss. On their wedding weekend. If he missed it, there would be consequences. While I finished with the car, Madison got a call. Phil was suspended pending investigation. Financial irregularities. They were auditing everything. I slipped out, finding Walter on the patio. He confirmed Phil had cut corners, fudged numbers. Classic case of ambition outpacing ability. Wedding postponed indefinitely. Phil quietly fired a month later, under the corporate euphemism of pursuing other opportunities. 8 months later, Madison showed up at my California shop. Simpler clothes, less makeup, hair natural. She'd seen us featured in Car and Driver. She wasn't with Phil anymore. The worst part? Her parents completely turned on him once his career imploded. The guy they'd pushed on her for years suddenly wasn't good enough. She finally realized they never cared about stability. When she asked what I'd learned about myself, she looked at me with regret, admitting she'd wasted years chasing the wrong things, letting go of someone who knew what mattered. I told her I was with someone incredible, building something real. She mentioned Walter had told her about the Ferrari, how I could have exposed Phil but didn't. I shrugged. The car deserved better. She smiled sadly. So did you, she said. That night on our deck, Knox snoring at my feet and Alexis against my shoulder, I got an email about a job in Monaco. Alexis joked about being jealous of all these exotic cars demanding my attention. Never, I told her. They're just cars. Beautiful, but just things. And yeah, that's my story. My revenge wasn't destroying other people's career or watching Madison's perfect future crumble. It was building something genuine while they built on lies, finding happiness on my terms while they chased approval that never satisfied, knowing I never needed their validation in the first place.